3.
Good morning. My name is Jacorin Adams.
Mikey Mack,
Angel Payne.
Adia Taylor, Skylar Wood.
And our research question is, why do Black women have a higher chance of dying during childbirth?
This is just some background information and some vocabulary words that will be used frequently throughout our presentation. So maternal mortality means, as defined by the World Health Organization, is the death of a woman while pregnant or within 42 days of termination of pregnancy, irrespective of the duration and site of pregnancy, from any cause related to or aggravated by the pregnancy or its management, but not from accidental or incidental causes. Implicit bias is attitudes or stereotypes that affect our understanding, actions, and decisions in an unconscious manner. And some statistics are Black women are 3 to 4 times more likely to die during childbirth than anyone else. And in San Francisco, where Black women make up 6% of the population, they make up 50% of the recent maternal mortality deaths.
One of the reasons why black women are dying of childbirth is negligence. African American women are 3 to 4 times more likely to die from childbirth than non-Hispanic or white women. And the socioeconomic status, education, and other factors do not protect against this disparity. Instead, sexism and racism are primary drivers. In a series of publications, the Center of American Progress has begun to examine the multi-factor issues of disparities in maternal and infant mortality of African American women and infants.
Another reason why Black women are dying is because of bad health. Multiple diseases are causing Black women death. High blood pressure, diabetes, kidney diseases, and lupus are mainly found in Black women, which makes them more prone to die during their pregnancy.
Also, in bad health, these women are experiencing 2 main diseases, which is hemorrhage and preeclampsia. Hemorrhage is blood loss inside of the body or internal bleeding, and it's usually caused when a blood vessel is damaged or organs damaged. But these women are experiencing postpartum hemorrhage, which means something's happening after childbirth. So it leads people to believe that the OBGYN is not doing something right, which is messing up their blood vessels and organs. They're also experiencing preeclampsia, which is a deadly case of high blood pressure, and there's fewer than 200,000 cases, and that this disease is rare and treatable, and it shows early in African Americans and other races.
Another reason why women of color are dying during childbirth is racism and bias during their, I guess you could say, checkups or daily visits to their OBGYNs. A lot of women, unfortunately, experience racism or racist actions towards them while they're with their OBGYN. For example, a woman in Hawaii went to the hospital because she was in labor and she was to term, and she was in a lot of pain. Her doctor told her that she had to show signs of pain in order for him to give her some medicine. So after she showed those signs of pain, he didn't even administer the epidural or any pain medicine. He had someone who was undertrained and underprepared to do it. That failed 4 times, and once it actually made its way to her veins, it only lasted for about 40 minutes, and then she was lying there for about an hour and a half in pain, and then she had to deliver her baby with no pain medicine. After she delivered her baby, she laid there covered in fluids and blood for about 2 hours until they brought her baby back and then sent her home without cleaning her up or anything.
These women have little or no lack of access to things like food and water, which these women are coming from low-income homes, and they have little to no education. And it's shown that Black women, which are the ones that have little to no education compared to other races. And according to the U.S. Census Bureau, 13% of Black men and women have less than a high school diploma. And a study has shown that 27% of African Americans, men and women and children, live in below poverty level compared to 11% of Americans. And more than half of 55% of Black families are headed by single women.
Another issue or reason why these women are dying during childbirth is the undertrained doctors and nurses. They can actually complete their training without ever stepping foot into a facility that delivers babies, and even hospitals that do have the maternal ward sometimes aren't prepared for the postpartum hemorrhages and the preeclampsia. So it'll be Renee Hackney from NPR called A Hodgepodge of different procedures. And another issue is the government. The U.S. government has the highest amount of we spend the most on healthcare than any other country in the developed world, but we also have the highest maternal mortality rate in the developed world. And that's because out of all the money that we donate and spend on healthcare, none of it's going towards research as to why these women are really dying. So it's all pretty much speculation.
This is some information that we found online. African American women are 1.8% more likely to experience a heart attack than women who aren't of color. African American women are 11.4 more per thousand to die due to strokes, and then they are 4.6 percent per 100 to be diagnosed with diabetes. And this is some information that is world renowned, so everyone knows about it, and no one's doing anything about it.
Here are some experiences that most African Americans have experienced. Lexi Reed Carter, she was at a checkup and she got called Aunt Jemima by her white dermatologist. And the background information about Aunt Jemima was that she was a minstrel show character, self-made and wearing a bandana. And Lexi said that it was very derogatory and demeaning.
Next is Leah McCants, which she wasn't informed of her risk of postpartum hemorrhaging. And she basically had twins, and she had went home healthy, but after 9 days, she started experiencing complications with her C-section, and she had realized that she was having a lot of blood loss inside of her body, which was blood everywhere. But she said that she had a good experience at the hospital, but she started to wonder if she was white, would they care more about her concerns? And so she realized that while she was there, a social worker was visibly surprised to see that her and her husband were a professional couple, because they both were, I guess, higher on the scale than people expect for black people to be. And she realized that when she was told about her postpartum, it was less information given. She didn't know much about it.
The next person is Jamie Clemente Rivera. She has 3 children and they all have the same father, but every time that she goes to give birth, the doctors always ask her if she has her kids by all the same men. When she was in the hospital having her first child, she had went to go use the restroom and she was crowning. She said that she was screaming for help, and none of the nurses, none of the doctors would come in the room quick enough, and that she said that by the time that she had got help from the nurses and the doctors, that it was too late and that she could barely make it to the bed. And she said that she felt like the doctors viewed her different from all the other patients.
Our final lady is Simone Landrum. She was experiencing a lot of pain during her pregnancy, and her doctor just told her to take Tylenol, and the more pain she felt, the more Tylenol they told her to take. And after having her child, she went back and looked at her medical records, and her blood pressure levels were actually in the range for preeclampsia, and her doctor never even informed her that she could have had that.
Some possible solutions is the implicit bias test. The implicit bias test was created by Harvard to acknowledge implicit bias. In the test, they use negative words and African American in the same sentence. And one of the questions stated, "Are you racism?" to make it easier to pass the test. And also, racism can impact your mental health.
Okay, better training is when some doctors can complete training in maternal fetal medicine without ever stepping foot in the laboratory delivery unit. And we know that with better training, you can have less deaths, a better trust in the medical field, and a better understanding of what's going on. But the cons can be that it costs more to get better training for the doctors.
Another solution is the CARE Act that was proposed by Senator Kamala Harris, and it creates laws to basically prevent any more losses or decrease the amount.
Deeper on implicit bias, a quote that I found is that we do have a bias control mechanism in our brain that can prevent our biases from translating into behaviors. To trigger this mechanism, our brain needs to mismatch between our overachieving goals of being fair and instinctive people. And they also, OBGYNs often treat patients as numbers more than actual patients and people.
Okay, so the final solution that we actually chose was the CARE Act. And basically it's two different grants. One is for the implicit bias training, which is different from a test because it's not saying are you biased, it's saying more you are biased, everyone's biased. We're going to train you on how not to do that. And the training actually will be put into medical schools, which could be considered better training for them. And the other grant is to incentivize the maternal health care providers for actually decreasing the amount of deaths that they have in their facilities. And the only con to that would just be people who see it as like a deal or like instead of a, I don't know.
Okay. All right. So, Kia, describe how the content of the team presentation was changed as a result of group discussion.
When we first started, we had like based all the information off of the racism and the medicines that they were given, but the more that we did research, the more that we kind of like split it up into different lenses and different like groups.
Okay. Decorin, how did the group decide to include Angel's perspective, lens, or conclusion into the overall presentation?
Angel's lens was about more about the training and the doctors, and we incorporated hers because she brought information to the group saying how poor they were trained, how they weren't getting the proper training that they needed. So we saw that, well, she brought that as a problem, and then as a group we all came to a solution. So it gave us another lens to see the big problem about African American deaths during pregnancy, and it gave us another lens and another insight on how and why they're dying.
Thank you. All right. Adia, reflecting on your colleagues' work, which one had the greatest impact on your overall understanding of the problem your group identified?
I would say Scholars because she gave us the actual CARE Act, and I don't think any of us actually knew about the CARE Act, but when she told us and informed us about it, it caused more of an issue because it's something out there about that, but it's still going on, the problem's still going on. So I think Scholar gave us the biggest solution to the whole problem.
Okay. Skylar, what is an example of a compelling argument from one of your peers' individual reports that you decided to exclude from your team's presentation, and why?
Something we excluded would probably be when Angel actually proposed that the implicit bias test as a solution for our question, because we later found out like the contents of